Hey everybody, let's have a free play video on my two best bets in college football season win totals. Now, I've talked about these on a couple of shows I've done. They don't get near the views the free picks get. You should be watching those shows for season win totals with various guests I have. However, I'm going to give them to you. These are plays I actually bet, and one of them relatively large in Las Vegas. We're going to talk about both of them. And the theme of this video is coaching. If you're not putting coaching as a handicapping emphasis as part of your daily routine, weekly routine for football, you're doing yourself a disservice. Let's talk about Central Florida and Scott Frost, somebody I'm very familiar with. Being a Nebraska alum, I watched him win a national title with them in person against Peyton Manning in the Orange Bowl in 1997, Tom Osborne's last game. Great player. Not a good coach. After Mike Riley's debacle at Nebraska, where the cupboards were bare and we couldn't get out of our own shoes, we bring in Scott Frost, the favorite son, to save the program. What he did in a little under 5 years was absolutely despicable. He could not coach. He had problems on and off the field, personally off the field, that were significant. But he couldn't coach. Thought he could recruit. Nothing panned out. And here's my point. The season win total at Central Florida, where he went 14-0 the year that we hired him for $5 million a year at Nebraska, and he beat Auburn in a bowl game, and Central Florida was unbeaten. The reason he did that was Milton was the quarterback, and Milton was the stud. He's on his coaching staff now. However, that's like Tom Osborne winning national titles all over the place and only losing 3 games in 3 years, or 4 years, whatever it was, with Tommy Frazier, and why Mac Brown won a national title with Vince Young. He was one of those quarterbacks, one of those players. Just got lucky. At Nebraska, with all the resources that Nebraska has, which would be the envy of about 90% of the college Division I football programs out there in terms of nil money available, booster money, facilities, the envy of college football. They're right up there in the top 5. He couldn't win 6 games. As a matter of fact, during his tenure, when he got fired in his 5th year, halfway through the season, it was the worst win-loss run Nebraska had had as a program since 1940. And now his season win total at UFC is 5.5, over or under. The cupboards are bare. He couldn't coach at Nebraska. Teams were unprepared. They were undisciplined. They couldn't close out games. There was no halftime adjustments. He lost the locker room. Now you're going to UFC, where Gus Malzahn left. He's offensive coordinator at Florida State. The cupboards are bare. They lost their 5 leading tacklers. They have to replace every position, at skill position on offense. Yeah, you're going to open up against Jacksonville State, North Carolina AT&T, but once you hit the schedule in the Big 12 and you finish with Baylor, Houston, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, and BYU, there's 5 straight losses right there. No way. He couldn't win 6 games at Nebraska ever with all their resources. The Big 12 is parity-ridden this year. There's 5 or 6 teams that can win the Big 12. Everybody's good, nobody's great. Central Florida is not, and he's not going to be able to coach him up. Under 5.5, minus 120, my biggest futures bet of the 2025 season in college football. FYI, I'm not going to win 6 games there. On the other side of the coin, let's talk about Nebraska, my alma mater. Matt Rule is in his 3rd year. He took over a Rutgers program a Temple program that couldn't get out of their own way. In the 3rd year, he coached them to 11 wins. He took over Baylor, which was a complete mess. Remember all the suspension, just an absolute debacle after Bryles. Third year, 10 wins. Nebraska last year got him to a bowl game. Won it in his second year. Got a 5-star quarterback in Raiola. It's the guy that signed with Ohio State and Georgia before backing out of both and coming to Nebraska. He was a true freshman last year. He made true freshman mistakes. He's got another year under his belt. He's on an offense that returns 10 starters. But let's talk about coaching. Guess who the offensive coordinator is for Nebraska? Dana Holgorsen. He stepped in as a consultant last year, then took over the last 4 or 5 games, turned them around. With 10 returning starters and a 5-star quarterback, and by the way, a freshman quarterback that came in and is pushing him in camp right now. They're deep. They're deep at running back. They're deep at wide receiver. They got a good offensive line. They brought in a starter from Notre Dame in the transfer portal on the offensive line. Defense top 20 the last 2 years. Now they're going to take a step back, but you take a look at Nebraska's schedule. They open up with Cincinnati in Kansas City at Arrowhead as a 6.5-point favorite. Then they play Akron, Houston Christian, Michigan, Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota, and Northwestern. There might be one loss in there. And Michigan's going to play Nebraska without their head coach now, after all the suspensions going on there. That'll be a barometer game for them. They have USC at home, at UCLA, winnable. Their final 2 games, at Penn State, that's a loss. Penn State's the best team in the country. And then Iowa at home in a big rivalry game. I think they can get them. Over 7.5 wins. It's juiced up to minus 150. I'd still take it. Matt Rule's not going to have double-digit wins like he did at Temple and Baylor in his 3rd year. I wish he would. But he can have 8 wins and get to a decent bowl this year, getting Nebraska back on the map. Those are my 2 best bets. Doc Sports, a place to be for football this year. I enter my 34th year. Yes, I'm getting old, long in the tooth, but that means I'm wily and I'm wise. Join me this year. We have an early bird special, $200 off a season pass, and that's college and pro football through the playoffs. There's no extra money needed for a playoff package. One price all year till they crown a champion. Doc Sports, free $60, link in the description below the video or a tab on the website. Put it towards the season pass. Get an additional $60 off. Invest in me this year. You won't be disappointed. Doc Sports, that's where you need to be.